Hello guys, hope you guys are excited for Season 3 of Lost Ark. This video will cover Season 3 general progression. It includes most asked questions from my live streams and my personal tips. Please note that some of the information may be different based on the server's market situation and personal goals you may have with your Lost Ark journey. This video will cover ARK Passive in detail and general progression at the endgames. ARK Passive is a new system where your character gains new powers and gains something totally different. Along with hyper awakenings and skills, the combat becomes more complicated and deal tons more damage. There are two types of ARK Passives, the T3 node and the T4 node ARK Passive. The T3 ARK Passive is achievable after eye level 1660 with full relic accessories, whereas the T4 ARK Passive requires at least one ancient accessory. So when can you switch to ARK Passive? The simple answer is, you can't until the new raid release. You can actually come back to this video at that time too when you get the new raid. But with that, let's go over what you need to do to prepare to switch to ARK Passive. First, we have evolution points. You can get up to 120 points total, added from the Aegir raid gear piece and combat level 70. Armors require 40 tokens and weapons need 100. You can make one piece per week if you clear hard mode and 2 weeks at a time for normal, because hard mode gives 40 and normal gives 20. The weapon only unlocks up to plus 25 hones. It does not give you evolution points, so make sure you work on the armors first. The first week reward of the raid will give you 20 tokens, so you can actually craft one gear piece regardless if you play normal or hard. So if you're 1660, you won't be able to switch to ARK Passive unless it's the third week of Aegir. Second, we have Enlightenment points. These are determined by accessories. Full relic accessories will grant you 46 points total. Full ancient accessories will grant you a total point of 61. Alongside this, there are additional assets you need to collect. Combat level gives you up to 20 points. Curzan North Adventure Tome gives you 3 points at 70%. Una Reputation that takes about 17 days give you 3 points. And the Field Boss gives you 5 points total, and it has a 6-week pity. So you can get it on the first day if you're super lucky. Lastly, there is an underdeveloped repoint from the Crimson Nail map, a new collectible, so we don't have this yet. So with everything combined, the maximum points you can get from full relic accessories is 77 points. If you have full ancient accessories, you can have 92 points. Opening a tier 4 node, the new ARK Passive attributes, requires 80 points total, because it requires 8 points to level this up. Therefore, unless Crimson Nail comes out for the extra 3 points, you need to be 1680 for ancient accessories. You could switch one necklace for 13, or you would need to switch 2 earrings or 2 rings. And as of now, there is also another choice of opening Karma up to rank 4 for having 3 additional enlightenment points on top of that too. So if you're 1670 and run enough Bracelets but didn't increase your eye level, you can actually have T4 open with full relic accessories. The minimum points required to justify switching is 72 points, because with 72 points, you get to level up to tier 3. And this is equivalent or better than Season 2 class engraving benefits. So to wrap up from this point, if you have 2 pieces or above and have 72 points, you're actually able to switch to ARK Passive. Third, we have Leap. This will be open at Hyper Awakening update. You need to be 1640 and it will grant you Hyper Awakening and Hyper Awakening skills. These T skills have a long cooldown, but it does the most damage out of all your skills. It's a significant power spike to your class. Regardless you open ARK Passive or not, you will still be able to use Hyper Awakenings and Hyper Skills. So don't be stressed out about not being able to open ARK Passive. If you do open ARK Passive, you'll have additional benefits like faster cooldowns and additional damage to Hyper Skills or Hyper Awakenings. After the Bracelets update, you'll be able to equip T4 bracelets. Both Relic and Ancient bracelets are obtainable during dailies too. Keep in mind, never spend on T3 bracelets anymore because they're obsolete. Simply switching to Ancient Bracelet and just opening up Karma once will let you have 20 extra points in Leap. So I can have level 2 of T-Skill modifiers, and this is actually a significant damage increase. So essentially when bracelets come out, which I'll talk about a little bit more later, it is very important for you to get a decent bracelet or just wear anything if your T3 bracelet is not as good, because the bonus damage from the modifiers do make it better for you to equip it instead. My advice from this point is before Aegir comes out, be diligent on the side content related enlightenment points. The Adventure Tome was fairly easy, but Una Reputations takes a few. The Field Boss is going to take very long if unlucky, and combat levels take a decent amount of time too. At Aegir release for Korea, which was 2 weeks after Season 3, most of us were combat level 65, whereas my friend Saint Tone was 70 due to saving cube tickets. Not many people had all the enlightenment points as well. As a rough estimate, getting all of this took me about a little bit over a month. If you haven't saved cube tickets, don't be stressed out getting combat level 70 quickly. It's good to be 70, but it didn't really feel like it was mandatory. But definitely be diligent enough to burn some cube tickets. You can also run older Legion raids. Normal and hard both gives the same amount of experience, so you can actually do normal really quick. And don't forget to trade combat experience from solo trade NPC, alongside combat experience potions from Pirate Coins. and guild traits for bloodstones. That plus some people do buy more boxes for cube tickets to get more combat experience, but that's an option. When you reach 70 though, be sure to utilize the stronghold training to raise your ults faster. They do reach 69 pretty quickly. As for Crimson Nail, the new collectible, even if the update doesn't exist for the second one, try to finish the first piece. The NPC boat sometimes comes here right outside Curzan, and they have chance to sell 2 of the map pieces. Combat level 65 before egg gear is a really good goal, and doing dailies and weeklies and stuff I mentioned just now will definitely be good enough, and you'll be able to progress at a decent speed in combat levels afterwards with just dailies. Next, let's talk about the ARK passive in more detail, starting with the evolution again. Evolution tab is super simple. The first row is allocating combat stats. The second and third row is choosing bonuses that are equivalent to set bonus during season 2. The fourth row is the new tier 4 assets that give huge damage boosts. What is really cool about this is you can allocate stats on the fly without being worried about buying anything like accessories in season 2. So if I happen to have crit synergy in my team, I can allocate more swiftness if I want to. It's 50 combat stats per point. Second and third row is where you can increase evolution damage. It's a new modifier that is additive to itself. So simply stacking evolution damage is inefficient. You can see some of these nodes look very similar to set bonuses, like Full Force Smite and Keen Sense. This kind of reminds you of Hallucination. Therefore, Hallucination or Nightmare classes can switch to ARK passive earlier with 2 pieces only, because they can max these 2 attributes up for the higher crit rate. The entropy equivalent is Strike. This simply increases your directional skill crit damage, meaning it's not mandatory anymore to land front or back attacks. You're only getting benefits from universal crit rate increase from the back attacks and damage increase from the front attacks. In tier 2, most all classes choose between Forbidden Spell, Keen Sense, and Limit Breaking. And as for tier 3, people use Limitless Magic, Full Force Smite, and Strike. Notes that I have not mentioned are very niche, but you can definitely try it out because you can always switch back and forth. As for supports, we have Goddess of Blessings and Dance of Passion. If you have 2 pieces of Aegir gear, you'll be providing 9% attack speed from Goddess of Blessings and 7% evolution damage from Dance of Passion. This is actually still decent given the fact you won't have Yearning Circle anymore. It's a map-wide buff as long as you're in combat. At 3 pieces of Aegir gear though, support must switch to ARK passive due to Dance of Passion being 14% increase from 7%. And also by the time it's 3 pieces, most players should have enough side content done to have at least 72 points with relic accessories. The 4th tier node is interesting. It's the new stuff. Blood Spike makes your crit rate fixed to 80%, and anything that goes over is converted into evolution damage. The classes I know that uses this is Gunslinger and DI Shadowhunter with Master Elixir. Basically, if your class's build's final crit is 119%, it is recommended to go Blunt Spike. Sonic Breakthrough is basically like Blunt Spike, but it's based on attack and movement speed. Only class that I know that uses this is Predator Slayer. I don't know the exact percentages, but as long as your attack and movement speed overcaps, you can use this. Stand-up fighting is what most classes use that cannot use others. Some supports use this as well. Problem about this is efficiency drops a lot during progression rates due to yourself being hit a lot more than homework runs. Mana Forge is for classes that have huge mana spendings. If majority of the skills are above 480 mana cost, they use this node. Supports also use this due to flat brand power of 20%, and then you don't have to worry about risk of getting hit. However, sufficient mana recoveries are necessary like Mana Food and Engravings like Max Mana. Nodes like Infighting and Stability is rarely used, especially Stability. The identity gains efficiency snowballs as the fight gets longer. So for your class, simply give either Keen Sense or Limit Break for damage, and support nodes for supports. And based on your crit rate, level up necessary nodes to help. Entropies always use Strike. As for T4 nodes, if you don't know much about your class, just pick up Stand-Up Fighting. If you do know, you can choose Blunt Spike, Sonic Breakthrough, or Mana Forge. The best part about this again is you don't actually have to be stressed out on buying accessories or buying equipment. You can just allocate points on the fly and test things around. Going over Enlightenment tab. Enlightenment is definitely allocated based on how many ancient accessories you have. More importantly, the accessories themselves can give significant power increase based on polishing. For allocating points, always prioritize leveling up T4 node first if you can. For side nodes, most people simply just choose the highest percentage gained. As for supports, all the side nodes are utility based, so you're actually okay leveling up T4 node only with 80 points. So for supports, the more popular build is having 2 ancient earrings and have relic accessories on necklace and 2 rings with high polished stats to have really good buff efficiency. During the early point of Season 3, you must calculate things based on fragments because you may not have enough fragments to get full polished ancient accessories. And you can only get a few of them every day from dailies and weeklies. Because of this, there are few types of accessories that will exist in the market. First is full polished random. Full polished random is a user selling an ancient accessory that is fully polished but that has no good attributes in them, like HP, mana, and CC duration. In the beginning, it was very expensive because people are rushing to open ARK passive. However, it is actually really bad to buy this at a high price because there will be an excess amount of fragments and accessories as the game progresses. So with this knowledge, you guys can actually take advantage of this. If you're not rushing to open ARK passive, and if you get an ancient accessory, you can fully polish it yourself and sell at a high price to a spender. Obviously, the problem is obtaining an ancient accessory and having 450 fragments to spare. So you need your character to be at 1680 and defeat Aegir. However, the payout is really nice on the few weeks. Next category, we have one high premium stat. Before going over, these are the premium stats. They actually impact a lot on your damage output. This is additional damage up to 2.6%, additional damage to enemies up to 2%, 6% identity meter gain for supports, and 8% marking damage increase. So these are the premium stats, and based on if you get the premium stat and at a high point, these accessories are the most expensive in the market, and it will always be. So what people do is you get one ancient accessory obtained or buying from it. So let's say you run Aegir and then we have a bunch of accessories. And then you have this accessory, you just polish it once using 75 fragments. And if you get a high premium stat or a low premium stat, you just sell it off the market or use it yourself. So if you're lucky, you can get one high premium stat. Until this day, it is still expensive due to its rarity, and during the early stages of the season, it was even more expensive than this. It was on the millions too. Fully polished with one high premium stat is technically a finished accessory that you can use for a very long time, maybe even till season 4. Personally, I'll be trying to set this up as well for the next raids too. This is what most people have. It's the same thing as high premium stat, but just the middle version. It's the purple version for it. These are usually much cheaper to make and have great efficiency in them. So in my case, if you guys are actually serious about progging, like let's say Broshaza hard, if you're polishing it and then you get mid, I guess you would use it yourself. But during the early season, even if you get mid, I will be selling them with just one slot. So that way you'll be only using 75 fragments and making a lot of gold from it. In order to search easily through the market, it is advisable to make some presets. So you would have the accessory here, and then you would have ancient, and then on the side you will have polish level. So if you're looking for a 1 mid high stat, you would put as polish as level 1, and then add in additional damage and put it as high. And then you save the preset, you know how much the price will be. And sometimes when some of these people don't know as much during the early season, they do upload these things at a very cheap price. You can snatch them too as well. So I do have them as necklace, earrings, and rings. And as for fully polished one, just have it as ancient or relics, and then just have it as 3 polish. That way you can search for fully polished accessories on the fly. Back then, during the early season, it was a really good strategy to keep selling them, but nowadays I think just keeping the fragments is smart. But for early season, it might be okay to fully polish relics and try to sell them. This used to be like 8,000 gold, now it's 300 because a lot of people have fragments now. And with this in mind, you could do something like 2 polish and then try to find mids and then have a preset for that as well. You should be able to search for them. There are a few known methods for you to build your accessories. You would polish one line to see if you can make some money or use it. Then based on the situation, you can either finish the accessory yourself, you can either finish polishing the accessory yourself using fragments and then wear it. Second, you would buy 1 or 2 line accessory from the market. So in this case, I could buy 1 mid line and an irrelevant line. If I buy this, I would just need to spend 225 fragments to have an accessory for me to wear. So during the early season, you can actually use relic accessories as much as you can, slowly upgrade into the ancients later while trying to test your luck to make money. The reason why relic accessories is still very important even till this day is because as for supports, it is more valuable to get the high line for the attack buff efficiency and the Z buff efficiency than having the ancient accessory to have more enlightenment points and a little bit more stats on strength or intelligence. You could keep the rings and the necklaces to test your luck by just using only 10 fragments. If the stat is high, it's still 17k, and supports still do buy this because this is more efficient. And what supports do is they buy these and then they just roll the rest. And even relics, if you get high mid or high, it is still a decent amount of price. It's 140k. And high doesn't even exist right now, but people have bought it so far because this would be the finishing accessory that a supports would wear. This is way more valuable than an ancient accessory with mid or mid low due to the sheer buff efficiency that the ring provides, and you can wear 2 of these too. And necklaces is a lot easier, you just need to get the high stat on marking, and this is still 70k. So it's very important for you to save the relic accessories that are decent quality, and then maybe use 10 fragments to test out your luck and see if you get the high stats for the support attributes. This doesn't apply to the West when the season hits right away, because there's not going to be enough ancient accessories, there's not going to be enough fragments. Since fragments are much higher value than Korea right now, it would be advisable just to try to sell it because people would buy it. When you just simply finish a polished accessory, some of these polished accessories with no stats, they can actually go for 200k or 300k even. So based on the market, try to be keen for it. But what's important for me is teach you guys how to make the presets and what kind of accessories do exist and what people are going to be looking for. Let's talk about engravings real quick. When you open ARK Passive, since class engraving is moved over to Enlightenment, you get to choose 5 neutral engravings to boost your character. The engraving level is determined by books you have read in increments of 5. So since I have read 15 total relic books on stabilized status, I have level 3 on it, and it gives 16.25% damage. Based on what books you read, your final output is at the top. So my increased mass is only 14.5% damage increase due to reading up to only 10 legendary. The percentage increase itself is also nerfed a little bit at legendary because they have added relic engraving books to the game, and then you can equip 5. Curse Stole is 14% at ARK Passive, but Curse Stole at T3 is 16%. However, if I read it up to relic books, it's going to be 17%, which is higher than T3. The relic books are extremely expensive. In the very beginning, it was much cheaper, but as more people switched to ARK Passive, the prices skyrocketed, and it has been going down ever since. So this would be Adrenaline, Grudge, Keen Blunt, Raid Captain, Curse Doll, Hitmaster, Master of Ambush, Increased Mass, Match Extreme, and Supercharge. So my advice before ARK Passive for you guys is to at least read all legendary books before you swap to ARK Passive. You don't need to rush it though, because the game will eventually give you events and assets to help you read legendary books when Season 3 hits. For example, one time, Marie Shop was selling 40 legendary select books on a limited time for 200 blue crystals. By calculating with the conversion with the gold, the book's value was 500 gold if you buy it. This is why the books are now down super low, because a lot of people read them now, and then the game is actually giving you a lot. It used to be 6 to 8k range on premium engravings. So it's going to go down anyway. I would suggest to take your time a little bit. As for relics, other than the premium engravings, try to read the cheaper ones on your kit. For example, like I have read for Stabilized Status and Barricade. They're at like 28k, 30k range. And also, here's some of the niche engravings that I wanted to talk about too. Stabilized Status is really nice due to HP requirement being 65% now, but I would still recommend it on tankier classes. And mana efficiency over here is really good too. If you read it up to Relic, it'll be 16%, which is only 1% off, but you get 20% mana recovery on top of this. Ether Predator is also very good for progression parties. If you read this up to Relic, the damage boost is 16.2, only 0.8% difference. You need to get the full stacks though, and most raids are pretty long, so it's actually okay. And when you get the full stacks, you also get 30% damage reduction on top of that. And it's actually really super nice, and it's at 6.2k right now. It used to be 3k, and when Broshaza just came out, it skyrocketed to 15k. That's obviously because a lot of people were getting hit and then dying with one hit. As for supports, the only engraving that will increase your performance is Match Extreme, and Drops of Ether maybe. If you read it up to Relic, it has a huge 10% cooldown reduction, where you'll be able to allocate more spec stats for more buff strength. But this engraving is really expensive, it's 47k and hasn't been going down. It's not super mandatory to read it to Relic, but if you're a support, this is one of those engravings that you need to have it because the 7% cooldown is really valuable. As for Drops of Ether, it's 28k, it's at a decent price. It basically increases the strength of the drops itself, and the stone itself also increases the strength itself. So the crit drop, the attack power drop, it's going to be much stronger. I don't know the exact percentage of it, but it's a significant difference. This is also why some supports aim for Awakening and Drops of Ether Stone after reading Relic engravings, because it increases the power of the drop significantly. Lastly, let's get into the bracelets. As you can see, the bracelet premium stats are very straightforward. The tier 1 stuff now is additional damage, 2.5, 3, and 3.5%. And on top of that, you do 2.5% damage to demons and great demons. This is the highest tier attribute that you can get from a bracelet. And then we have crit rate increase, 3.4, 4.2, and 5%, and 1.5% more damage if crit. This is basically like a critical set. And then you have the critical damage version of it. These are all tier 1 stuff. And for tier 2, we have the double liners like weapon weapon damage, and if you're over 50% HP, you get additional weapon damage on top of that. Also, we have additional damage 4.5 and 5 and 5.5, but your skill cooldown increases 2%. Some classes that doesn't really mind higher cooldown, it's super efficient for this one too. And as for tier 3, we got something like weapon damage. You get stacks every 30 seconds. This takes a long time, but the sheer amount of weapon damage you get, and as the fight goes longer, it's better. And then we have flat crit damages, flat crit rate, and then flat weapon damage. That gives a lot of stats too. Going under the tiers, we still have those hitmaster damage, back attack damage, and front attack damages. And for tier 5 additional damage, this is much lower in the tier list due to being it additive. And then we have stir, dex, int, and the rest of the stuff on this category. And as for supports, we have dagger, we have exposed weakness, and more crit damage. This is the new one. It's like the Glavier synergy, and they added buff efficiency on top of that. The only thing that's different here is the dagger, exposed weakness, and more crit damage. This is not raid wide. This is a buff for the party. And as for tier 2, this is super simple too. You have the buff efficiency up to 6%, and then you have the Z buff efficiency for up to 9%. So super simple lines. These stats are very straightforward, and they're much more powerful. And on top of this, you can level up your leap points to level 2 as well. And as for the bracelet strategy, what people are doing is, since there's so much value in having a 5-line bracelet, they're actually buying relic accessories and plan to upgrade them after. This one is a 4-liner with 86 crit, but if I happen to search the ancient version for it, it's actually cheaper because you're stuck with the 4-liner, but for relics, you can actually upgrade them to get a bonus line. At the early time, it was selling for 2,000 is because a lot of people were buying relic bracelets with premium stats. These are super expensive, and then they collect the fragments by dismantling the ancient bracelet and then upgrade them after. That way, since you can roll for 3 lines, and it's much more simple, much more easier to get these premium stats because there's a lot less now. There's like no flip or like those stupid attributes, right? There's a lot less of those now. Aiming for these premium stats for 3 lines is a much more known strategy right now. So for bracelets, if you guys ever get to get them, in the very beginning, for people who are trying to do so, you would sell bracelets for them. Basically, every raid that I did, I just sold bracelets for like 1,000 or 1,500 gold each, made some gold out of that. And for relic bracelets, you do want to pay attention to them. If it's a 4-liner that has a decent combat stat or decent stats that you want, you might want to keep it, roll it for yourself, and then perhaps upgrade it in the future. Even if you have a very basic ancient bracelet with 2 combat stats, it's actually better than some of the more premium bracelets that you have on tier 3 because you do get to level your leap points and your T skill does massive damage. And as for rolling the bracelets, it's a simple thing. You roll it and then you get to choose either or, and if you choose, you can re-roll right afterwards after locking. And then from back and forth, you can actually make a decision. When you've finished rolling, you get to use tickets, and these tickets, you get to receive them if you defeat the Bracelets raid, and at the auction, you get to buy these tickets. And you can also get 3 additional tickets from spending karma potions that you get from defeating the raid. You can only buy this once. So these tickets are actually really valuable. If you happen to clear Bracelets for the first time, they do give you 3 tickets, and I used it already. You can only do 3 additional rerolls. So the maximum rerolls that you could do is 4. You reroll 4 times, and then you can reroll 3 more times by using 1 tickets each. Let's go over karma points really quickly. Karma bottles are rewarded from clearing the new Bracelets raid. You get to unlock a rank by using them. After that, you'll be spending Stone of Destiny, which works just like Chaos Stones, and spend gold to increase the level. So in this case, it'd be 20% chance, and then I'd be getting 10% pity every click. And when you level them, you get very minuscule buff, which is a 0.1% weapon power. If you get it up to 4, you'll be able to use the bottles again and then get it to rank 2. And when you get to rank 2, you're back to trying to level up for 20% chance again, 15%, 10%, and then 7.5%. And as for enlightenment, rank 2 will give you 2 enlightenment points, 3 enlightenment points, 4 enlightenment points, and 5 enlightenment points, and lastly 6 enlightenment points. So essentially getting it to level 21 is the goal, and getting from level 21 to 30 is basically using extra cash for very minuscule gains. This is the same case for leap. We have up to 6 ranks, but leap points, it goes up by 2. So if you just open up leap points, you get 2 extra points, and since the bracelet gives you 18, you get to have level 2 on any of the T skill attributes. In order for me to get this skill to level 3, I will need to get the karma level to rank 5, which will take a very long time. As for DPS, it's very important to level enlightenment because you need to reach level 3 on the tier 4 node, and after afterwards you would need to level up some leap to hopefully get the level 3 on the T skill. The reason why I didn't talk about evolution is because evolution is very useless. What everyone's saying is you get HP in the beginning and then you get some attack power at the end. It doesn't have as much value as enlightenment and leap. And as for support, some classes are actually trying to work on leap. Artist has a T skill where it decreases the cooldown of her T skill, so getting the leap points to rank 5 as fast as possible will get that good benefit. Since support doesn't really get much benefit from leveling enlightenment because bonus enlightenment points gives you side nodes, which is utility based, and weapon attack 0.1% is very small for supports. So some supports are actually leveling evolution for more HP, for more heals and stuff. But all this stuff is subject to change. As for leap and karma, it's enlightenment for DPS, and supports, they can just level whatever they want. With that, I think I covered just about everything on ARK passive and how to think about them and prepare them. I really didn't cover for each class and builds because it would make it too confusing and specific. Perhaps in the future I can make one for a specific class or some of the other topics that people would be interested in. I may have missed a few info due to trying to cover so much, so if there's any specific questions, feel free to drop my live stream and ask. I hope this specific guide helps, and I hope you guys have fun in Season 3. Thanks guys for this long series, and I'll see you guys again. Bye bye!